The stereotypes of Asians were portrayed in American media in the earlier period in the United States were very much shaped by Asians or Asian immigrants and Asian Americans' social positions in the US. And they were portrayed in some way as a threat because there is the labor computations of Asians who were quite efficient. They brought capital, but they're cultural capital and social capital. That means they are well organized and very efficient. So the portrayal of Asians or Asian immigrants or even Asian Americans who were born in this country was shaped by that political social climate. It reflected those ideologies, but at the same time, it also reinforces and it helps reproduce those ideas or stereotypes of Asians.
So there have been a lot of stereotypes when casting Asians and Asian Americans in American theater. You do tend to get, in the earlier years, Asian Americans were being portrayed as immigrants who didn't speak English well, which then made them look unintelligent. What they were getting in television and film were minor roles, small roles, not very many lines, not the leads, never the leads. And these were qualified actors. Now, what's kind of interesting is the stereotype has shifted. So now you see, oh, well, the Asian Americans must be good at math. There is that stereotype of the nerdy science, engineering, math genius.
This is the unique position of Asian Americans because they are portrayed in a way as model minority. So those attributes, they're very law-abiding, they're hardworking, they are very smart, they are almost white, or they even out-white the whites because they outperform white in terms of scholastic achievements, in terms of this report of medium income levels, they're all higher than whites. But it can be problematic. You see, data doesn't tell everything, but it's the stories and portrayals of them.
So it's really been a very short period of time where the television and film industry, and plays as well, where people have said, you know what, it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is, you might very well be right for the lead. And that lead could be anything. It could be a romantic lead, it could be a scientist, it could be a doctor, it could be playing anything. But there are these stereotypes, and so sometimes people feel caught in it. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area, so closer to University of the Pacific, we have Asian American Theater Company, and then there's a new one called Ferocious Lotus. And they've been very active in the scene in the last couple of years. They want to address specifically the reality of being Asian American. What is it like to be Asian American? Not just to play any character where it could be any ethnicity and your experience as an Asian American is not examined. I mean, those roles are great too, but they also want to commission work and do work that says, let's actually look at our story, the reality of our lives, the reality of our story.
I think that diversity in media and representation in media as a whole, like not just for Asians, for all minorities of different sexualities, different ethnicities is important because the stories that we promote and that we tell in our TV shows, in our movies, in our books, they show who we value and what we value as a society. So if you're only telling the stories of a certain type of person, like a straight white guy, then it shows that we only value people of this particular background. And it just shouldn't be that way because America is a lot more diverse, a lot more browner than that. Although they aren't American, I think BTS is making a large difference in terms of Asian representation in American and Western media. BTS have reached a certain degree of success within Western audiences. They still do receive a lot of backlash that comes from a xenophobic origin. And despite this, they still have carved out a space for themselves within Western media, and they're still unapologetically Korean at the same time. And I think this says a lot about our shifting values towards being more accepting of different cultures as a whole. And specifically, I think it says a lot about how BTS were chosen to represent the youth by Time magazine and the United Nations. And it just kind of shows how leaders of the next generation don't have to be from a Western country. They don't have to be American, even though America is this sort of hegemonic figure politically and culturally.
So there's a much-loved musical, The Mikado. The music is part of the canon, as they call it. It's beautiful music, it's beautifully written, and it's one of those musicals that's going to be done for a long time. But the storyline was written some time ago, and it does play on prejudices, and many, if not most, Asian American artists that look at it say, this is demeaning, this is a problem. We do not want this story told this way. Now, ideally, the producers would have said, oh, wow, we didn't think of that. Yes, let's have a conversation. They didn't. They pushed back. The Yerba Buena Center for the Arts staff noticed it and found out about it and said, you know, they're going to bring this Mikado to the Yerba Buena Center. And if this is offensive, we cannot allow this to happen here. In the end, there was a wonderful outcome. The Lamplighters decided to look at the script and see how you could change the libretto, the words part of it. And they realized if we changed the location to Renaissance Italy, in a port city where people of all nations would be in that port city, they could have the multi-ethnic cast that they wanted to have. They realized if they changed the setting, they didn't actually have to change too much of the story, because now it was a story about lots of different people from lots of different places, and it wasn't stereotyping one type of person. It's sad that the company, this day and age, in 2018, in San Francisco of all places, pushed back when someone said, you might have racism here. We should talk about it.
I didn't realize that, like, how different it is to see yourself represented until I actually went to see Crazy Rich Asians, which was this year alone. It's very different to have your stories validated on screen for everyone else to see and for everyone else to understand than seeing someone you don't really recognize.
In the new Star Trek, they are going to have Asian woman as the captain. So that is a significant change, because leadership was not one of the attributes of Asian characters or Asian American characters. They are always very smart, capable, but they are always just subordinate. But then this is a captain is a leadership role, and is a female, finally.
I'm not an expert on where Asian American representation in media is heading, but I think so far it is heading in a hopeful direction with previous projects that have received a lot of popularity and good feedback from the public in general. I think, yeah, that is a hopeful direction that we're taking. However, I think that even just within Asian representation, we could be doing a better job. Asians aren't just Chinese, Japanese, and Korean people. There's a lot of diversity within Asia itself, and I think that we need to start telling more of those stories from people of those ethnic origins too.
The Asian Americans are still fighting. They're still fighting for an opportunity to not be stereotyped all the time, and to keep the stereotypes from being perpetuated through media. And that's, I think, the key.
Think about how many Asians are portrayed in that way that make you feel that regardless of your ethnic, racial background, you can identify with that character and admire that character and love that character and wanting to be like that character. If we have Asian American images portrayed that have that impact on the general public in the United States, then we have made significant progress.